Hey guys.
Hey y'all.
So this is Destiny and Eden, and ignore the sweat. We are outside. It is really
so
hot.
And it's the fact that it's like the end of September
Mm-hmm.
and I'm still sweating.
Yeah,
Like,
if you don't know, we're from North Carolina. We're in Greensboro right now, and it's been cooler, but for some reason it just got hot again. It's like 85 degrees today, but it's still a beautiful, amazing day. So one thing that I feel like both me and Destiny have really been walking through right now with God is walking in obedience. You know, as college students, we've been in this stage of really maturing with God. I feel like last year was like we were juniors in college, if you don't know.
Yeah.
And last year was like our season of, we started off giving our lives to God fully. Like the end of my freshman year. You've been doing this.
For me, I really got serious about my relationship with God not serious, but like I was introduced to God for real, even though we're pastor's daughters. I started gaining my own relationship with God for real in high school. College is when I started getting serious about it. Like right when I entered freshman year, I was pretty serious about it. So
yeah. And my freshman year, this is a whole story for a whole nother day, but my freshman year I was a mess. And at the very end of my freshman year, God just really snatched me up. And that's when I just like started in my walk with God for real, like became God's daughter, not just a person who believes in God, but became a part of the kingdom.
Yeah.
So ever since then, I feel like we've both just kind of been seeing our lives as in like seasons. We just like been like, this time was for this season, this time was for that season. So basically all I'm saying is our freshman year, the beginning of our sophomore year, we went into like a season of isolation.
Yeah.
So that was like the whole season where I feel like, knowing a lot of Christian people now, I know most people, when they give their lives to God, God immediately puts them in an isolation season. I just feel like it's a part of the process. And then so after that, I feel like we've just been we finally stepped out of our isolation, and I feel like now God really is pressing on both of our hearts the word of obedience. And it may be, I feel like even for us, how we're walking in obedience is different.
Yeah.
So what has God been saying to you, like, about obedience during this time?
For me personally, I was just telling Eden this the other day. I feel like I've reached a point where I'm finally past like stuff that is a little bit trivial, even though a lot of people struggle with different things. Is like I'm past the, I gotta get out of this bad friend group. I'm past the, I gotta get out of this bad relationship. I'm past the, like the stuff that you go through whenever you're first transitioning into your walk with God. I'm past that stuff now, and God has helped me to grow past that stuff. And so I feel like I've reached a point now where God has been like, low-key, I've been feeling like a prophet, like having prophetic dreams. And God is just really, now that I've reached that level of maturity, it's like, okay, God is saying, you can handle more. Like, I'm going to start speaking to you for real about like state of the world type of stuff, because I feel like you can handle it now. And so that's what the biggest word that God has been giving me in this season pertaining to obedience is, number one, that your reward lies in your obedience.
Ooh.
This has been the season where God has been speaking a lot to me about my future, and a lot about the things that he's going to give me, and not even just like in terms of the things that everyone thinks that you're supposed to get, like a good job or a good relationship, all this stuff, but like God has just been speaking to me a lot about like the rewards, the blessings that he's going to start bestowing upon me. But it's like he's saying your condition, the terms and condition to this is that you be obedient, and quick obedience too, not asking for several signs, not saying, oh God, I'll do this whenever you give me a million signs. It's, you hear me, you hear clearly what I'm saying to you. Don't ask for a sign. Once I confirmed that it was me who said that to you, that's when you need to be obedient. That's when you need to do what you know that he said for you to do. So that's what God has been speaking to me about in terms of obedience. And just another thing is what I was saying earlier in terms of like state of the world type of stuff. We're entering, this is a little bit deep, but the world is entering into a period of judgment. and God is going to start judging.
It's obvious we're in the
It's
last
obvious.
days.
And the Bible literally says anytime there was any kind of judgment where God judged a land, Sodom and Gomorrah, Egypt, there was always a Goshen. There was always an exempt nation. And that nation was made up of people who were, one, called by his name. They were children of God. But it's not even just that they were children of God. Even some of the children of God could have been destroyed if they had not been obedient. They were exempt because of their obedience whenever God told them to do something. Be for real. They ended up being exempt because of their obedience when God told them to do something. For instance, in Goshen, Moses told them to take the blood of a lamb and do the cross over their doors with the blood of a lamb. That is the reason why they were exempt, because that spirit of death went past their house and exempt them because of their quick obedience to God. If they had not been obedient, if they had not done what God told them to do, they probably wouldn't have been exempt. It wasn't just because they were children of God, it's because they were obedient.
But I think a lot of people, a lot of Christians just assume like, I'm gonna be all right, like God's got me. If you read the Bible, just because someone claims to, because we all live in sin, but just because you claim to be a child of God doesn't mean that you're necessarily exempt from what's coming to us in these last days. I believe what's going to exempt us is obedience. And that's what I've been hearing from all this. That's why I feel like we both feel so pressed to say this, because I feel like really God is just pressing upon his chosen ones to tell my people, be obedient. Like in this season, you are going to have to be so obedient, because what I'm also hearing is that we're already in deception. We really are, but it's going to be mass deception and deception that like literally will determine where your soul goes. So I think it's literally like God does not want his children to be deceived. And I feel like the one way for us to not be deceived is for us to be obedient. And just the way in which God is pressing obedience in my heart right now is it's just a lot of different things where God has been telling me to be obedient. But it started when I got to campus this year. When we get to campus, literally about a month ago. We've been on campus for about a month now. The first thing I really felt God telling me to do when I got to campus was to give up meat and dairy, basically go plant-based. And this really, I won't even say it's when I got to campus, because he's honestly been speaking that to me for about a few years now. I think I've always known that I'm going to end up being plant-based. I've always known. I think even last year I would say, I'm going to do it when I graduate. Because like, I'm not going to lie, it is hard in college. We go to an HBCU, and if you know anything about HBCUs, they do not have the healthiest options on campus,
which is really sad. Side note,
but anyway, I feel like the first thing that, because I think I came into this year knowing that the next step in my walk with God was being obedient, because I think I've been in a stage where God has been giving me all these visions. I feel like I'm in a stage where I'm on the brink of God's promise for me in my next season. Because I don't even want to say God's overall promise for me, because God has so many promises for me because I'm his child. But I feel like the blessings that he has stored up for me in this season that I'm walking in right now, I feel like I'm on the brink of reaching them. And I keep on feeling God tell me, you are not going, it's not even that I know he's telling me, you are not going to see those blessings until you walk in obedience. Because I'm a person where I'm real stubborn. I have been struggling with being sluggish, being lazy, I've been struggling with a lot of confidence issues, and God speaking this to me, but I'm too scared to do it. But I feel like in this next season, God is finally telling me, like, you have to get up and do it. You are not going to see any of those big things that I promised you, any of those big visions that I've put on your heart. You're not going to see them until you get up. And I mean, think about it practically. You're not going to see it until you do it. So I feel like this was a season where God was telling me, okay, Eden, you know it's your time to be obedient. You know it's your time to start saying yes to me. And I feel like my first yes to God was, okay, I'm going to give up meat and dairy. I'm going to go plant-based. And when I tell you, it has just been amazing. Like, it's been literally exactly a month since I've gone plant-based, and I don't think I'll ever turn back. I think I just know this is the path that God had for my life. But the other biggest thing that yes kind of brought into my life was discipline. Because I feel like food was a big idol for me. If you know me, I love to cook, I love to bake. I'm a foodie. I am like the biggest. Destiny will tell you, I love food.
Sorry if it got darker. The sun is going in and out, but sorry for the
still
pause.
going to continue. So basically, what was I talking about? So we were talking about how I went plant-based, and it just I've gained discipline off of it, but I feel like part of it wasn't even the discipline aspect. I feel like most of it was God telling me, this is an idol, and are you going to trust me to satisfy you? Because when I tell you, food was like, it was like a satisfier for me. Like, when I was sad, I ate. Like, food was one of like the biggest parts of my life. Like, even though I'm a smaller person, like, I'm one of those small people that eats a lot. So literally, like, I feel like that was like, are you gonna trust me to satisfy your needs? Because I think another part of me not wanting to give up meat and dairy was, I love pizza, I love meat. Like, I
thought you were saying you didn't want to give it up because you love pizza.
No, I love meat. Like, I love chicken. And it's like, that was part of the reason why I even love cooking so much, is because, like, I loved creating those flavors. I love seasoning the chicken. I love just seasoning and seeing what I can create. But what I've learned is that, like, after giving that up, I love cooking even more. Like, I love food even more, and I feel better. Like, I just feel so much better. So either way, I'm not going to expound much more on that, but that was one of the first yeses that I gave to God, one of my first steps in walking in obedience. I know you mentioned earlier how also in this season, God is teaching you that you need to not even just say yes and be obedient, but yes after the first time he tells you. And I think that really pressed on my heart, because there was a verse that I read. It's in 1 Kings. So basically, there was basically like wicked king of Israel. And so I think he had basically in this season, like, a lot of the kings were coming in and were like giving way to false idols. So they were like starting to make the nations praise these false idols. They were starting to create altars for these idols. So basically, it was this king, and he was creating an altar for an idol. And basically, a man of God, the Bible never states what the man of God's name was. It literally says a man of God. So a man of God came to that king and basically told him that he needs to stop building that altar, or God's gonna basically break down his altar, or whatever. It's gonna destroy his altar. And so the king is like, who is this man? So he tells his servants or whatever, seize him. And right when he says seize him, his hand like falls limp. Like, I guess he loses all the strength in his hands. And so the king tells the man of God, he says, intercede with your God that he may restore the strength back to my hand. And of course he intercedes with God, and the strength is restored to this king's hand. And so I forgot to say the main part. Girl. So the main part of the story is that the man of God told the man of God to come to this area where the king is, but he tells him, do not eat any food, any bread or drink from this area. He says, do not eat anything or drink anything from this place that I'm sending you to. And the man of God, it's not even that he had any doubt. He knew what God told him to do. And this is how I know, because after basically flash forward to where I ended the story, the strength was restored to the king's hand. So basically after that, the king says, oh, come back to my palace and eat and drink with us. I'll bestow all these gifts upon you. And he says, no, my God told me that I cannot eat any bread or drink from this area, from this land. And basically, like, he stood strong on that. He did not eat any bread or drink from that land. And so basically a prophet from this story kind of confused me, because I'm like, oh, why would God send someone to deceive him like that? But I just have to...
Were they a real prophet? Or?
It was a prophet from God. The story says that it was a prophet from God. So the prophet from God came to the man of God, and he says basically, I saw what you just did. Come and eat with me, or whatever. Come back to my house and eat bread and drink with me. And the man of God stands strong and says again, no, God told me not to eat bread or drink from this area. But basically the prophet says, God has given me permission. God told me that you have permission to come eat bread and drink with me. But the man of God, but basically the story says the prophet of God was lying. He lied and said this. He knew he was lying.
So yeah, even though he was the prophet of God, he was lying.
Yeah, he was lying. He deceived the man of God. But so basically, long story short, the man of God ended up eating with the prophet. And so after that, the Bible says that because he was not obedient to God, he actually ended up being mauled by lions and dying, which is the
Bible can be so hard.
Yeah, especially the Old Testament.
Yeah.
So basically, yeah, he ended up dying. But what I learned from this story was not that I'm gonna die if I disobey God, but basically it taught me that you need to obey God after his first word, or that could end up basically stopping you from reaching his promise. Like, to me, that man of God being mauled was stopping him. That was the end of his destiny. So basically what God was telling me in that moment was, stand strong on what I told you to do the first time. And it's not even, I feel like that story is, yes, about obeying him after the first time, but if you read it, he did obey him. He told the king that he cannot eat any bread or drink with him. But when someone from God came and told him that basically tried to mess with his mind, that's what the prophet did. The prophet came to the man of God and messed with his mind and basically told him, oh, God didn't. It's kind of like what Satan told them in the garden. Oh, God didn't really say that. God knows that you won't die. Whatever. He knows that you'll have knowledge and wisdom like him, or whatever. And so that's basically what the prophet did to the man of God. He came and messed with his mind. And the reason why I'm sharing this is I feel like that's what a lot of us are going through right now.
You know what God told you to do.
We know exactly what God told us to do.
And if you're like me, you're a person who tries to look for confirmation from other people. Like, specifically me, I'm the type of person who's I'm very introspective. So I try to think it over in my mind, and then I'm like contemplating and saying, oh, but this pastor said this, and my mama said this, and my daddy said this. And they're all people who they're trusted people. They're trusted. They're people who you should trust. But you got to know that God even knows far beyond them. God, even his authority is above those authority figures in your life. So if God is telling you to do something, I don't care if the highest prophet in the land tells you to do something else.
That's actually
good. You have to know what God told you in your heart of hearts. And it goes along with what we were saying earlier. We're entering into a time of mass deception. So God will tell you something, and a prophet may come to you. Somebody who is trusted in your life may come to you and tell you, that's not right. God is not telling you to do that. But if you know in your heart that God told you to do something, don't let anybody sway you from that. And that's a big part of obedience, is not just being obedient, it's staying consistent in that obedience.
No matter what you hear, no matter, because that's the first thing, that's what I'm just getting in my spirit. That's the first thing the enemy will come to do. That's what he did in the garden, and that's what he's still doing today, is that when you receive a word from God, the first thing he does is come to you and plants that seed of doubt in your head. That seed, oh, did God really say that? And sometimes the Bible says that he parades around like an angel of light. Sometimes it will seem like someone who is of God, someone who has wisdom, someone who has knowledge, but you know what God told you to do this, but this person is coming and telling you, oh, do you really? It could be your mother, it could be your pastor, it could be anyone. But I think the main thing from this is God teaching me, and God teaching everyone who's watching this video, is you have to stand strong in what he told you to do the first time. And what I'm feeling right now is like, what the first question that pops up even in my...
I was literally just about to say that.
The first question that pops up even in my head after we say all this is like, okay, how do I know?
How do I know that
what
God
God's
told me?
telling me to do? I feel like for me, the biggest way in which I've been able to recognize and discern when it's God's voice and when it's the enemy's voice is, for us specifically, I feel like the biggest thing that we've noticed is that when we get a word from God, it'll be confirmed like in little signs everywhere. Like,
and the thing is, there's a difference. I feel like somebody's saying, but so if that's the case, what's wrong with me asking for a sign? There's not really anything wrong with asking for a sign, one. But second of all, whenever something is confirmed, it's not necessarily when you ask for it. There will just be signs of confirmation everywhere. Like, you'll get a word from God, and then he will literally just confirm it.
Yeah.
Like say God told you, what's an example?
So basically, like this, us doing this right here is like a step in obedience for us to God. And I feel like one source of confirmation that we've had a lot is, so we basically started doing like little videos on TikTok or whatever. And anytime we would feel like discouraged or whatever and didn't want to do it, someone would come up to us and be like, hey, we saw your video. I see your videos on TikTok. I love them. Keep doing what you're doing. Like, it would always be, and it'd be in those moments where like we didn't want to do it anymore. Like, we felt really discouraged. And that was our sign, like God telling us, like, you're supposed to be doing this.
That was the confirmation.
Yeah.
And we didn't ask for it. We didn't ask for those people to come up to us and confirm it. It just came.
Yeah.
So that's one of those things that we knew in our heart that it's something that God told us and was confirmed.
Yeah.
And so I feel like that's how you know it's God, when there's been confirmation, because God has never ever given me a word in my life that he didn't confirm.
Yeah.
I can't think of one single one that he didn't confirm.
Yeah.
And then there are other times where you'll hear a word from God. And this happened to me the other day. I was praying, and I was just praying about something very specific. And I was just saying, God, if this is what you're telling, because I felt like I heard God telling me to do a very specific thing. And I was like, God, I don't know. Sometimes you're human. You're not perfect. I understand. A lot of people make it feel like it's a sin to second guess themselves. It's not a sin to doubt. It's not a sin to doubt.
It's not a sin to say, was that me?
Yeah, it's not. And God actually, I believe, wants you to question things, because it helps you gain deeper understanding. But besides that, I was just in my mind thinking, was this really God? I don't know. And so I literally prayed. I said, God, if you're really telling me to do this, and it was something that was hard for me to do too. So I was like, God, if this is really something that you want me to do, I need you to confirm it. Send a sign, do something to confirm it. And sure enough, he confirmed it the next day. And so I feel like the caveat to that is, don't keep asking for signs.
Yeah.
Once God shows you that one sign and he confirms it, and you know that God confirmed it, follow him. Yeah. Don't keep asking, well, God, I asked you to show me a bird, you showed me a bluebird, now you got to show me a cow.
Exactly.
You have to follow that first time.
Yeah.
When he confirms something.
Yeah. It says in Matthew that an evil and adulterous nation asks for a sign.
Generation.
An evil and adulterous generation asks for a sign. And I basically take that as, yes, God will give you a sign, but I think when you ask for too many signs, it shows that there's doubt somewhere.
And doubt to me is different than unbelief.
Yeah.
Doubt is like this questioning curiosity you have in your heart. But unbelief, whenever you keep on asking for signs, that means that you don't trust God.
Yeah.
You don't believe that God really is true to his word whenever you keep asking for signs. The context of that verse is basically the Pharisees were questioning him and asking him to prove Jesus, and asking him to prove that he was the Son of God, or something in that context.
Yeah.
But he was basically saying, you know, that this is all the sign. Like, I am here as a living testament.
Yeah.
A living testament to the word of God. Like, he was literally the fulfillment of all the prophecies.
Yeah.
So they didn't need a sign, but they were asking for a sign because of their unbelief.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's the whole point of that, is it's not necessarily bad to ask for a sign and to ask for confirmation, because confirmation is very much needed. You don't want to be doing anything unless you know for sure that God told you to do it. However, it shows unbelief whenever you keep asking for a sign, and low-key it's a slap in the face to God.
It is.
So that's the whole point of that, is it's okay to ask for a sign, it's okay to ask for confirmation, but once you know, just what did mom and dad say? Dad got it, do it.
Yeah. Like, and I think it's also in one of our church services, one of the pastors did a sermon called "There Are Signs Surrounded by Signs."
Yeah.
And I think sometimes that helped me so much, because it helped me to realize that oftentimes we are surrounded by signs. Oftentimes we don't even have to ask for a sign. The signs are already all around you. The signs were already all around us that we needed to step out and be on social media. The signs that you're probably asking for are probably all around you, that you need to step out and do that thing. So sometimes it's, you just have to get out of your head and step out of that fear, because if you never step out of that fear, you're never going to see the promise of God in your life.
Exactly.
God's going to take care of you, God's going to keep you, but that perfect will of God that you've been longing to live in, you have to step out and be obedient. Really, why I have felt so pressed to talk about this is because I know a lot of people are probably in the same season that I've been in, where I feel like, not that God has done all of his work, but I feel like I'm in a stage where a lot of the times we think it's the devil keeping us away from God's promise.
Yeah.
Like, because a lot of times that was me. Like earlier this year, I just felt like, what is the devil doing? Oh, he's just trying to keep me away from this, and he's trying to keep me away from that. A lot of times it's God's sitting like this, and he's waiting for you to move.
Yeah.
He's like, okay, my hands are off of it. Now it's your time to move.
Exactly.
He's already prepared a place for you. He has prepared that destined place for you. Now he's waiting for you to get up and say that yes and walk down that path. He's literally waiting. He's waiting for you. I know God was waiting for me to get up and say yes. And now I feel like I'm finally on the path where I'm walking in obedience.
Yeah.
But I wasn't going to get on that path until I got up and said yes.
Yeah.
And now I'm feeling closer and closer to that promise.
Yeah.
But you have to get up and say yes. You can't just sit down and blame everything on Satan. You can't. Now, there may be distractions sent from Satan. There may be attacks sent from the enemy, but you have to be strong enough to overcome those attacks. That means staying in your word. That means interceding and praying with God every morning, every night. That just means staying in close contact with God so he can give you the strength to overcome those attacks. But I really am feeling like God's in a place with his people where he's
saying like, okay, it's your turn now.
Yeah.
Like, here's the baton.
Yeah.
It's your turn.
Exactly. He's passing the baton to you. Now it's time for you to take the baton. And he's going to lead you all the way. But it's time for you to take the baton and walk it.
That was just something that's been on our hearts for a very long time. It's just this whole topic of obedience. And I feel like this is just so important for us right now, because this is really a pivotal and crucial season that we're living in your personal life, and in terms of the world as a whole.
Yeah.
So it's just very important that you know how important obedience is. And that's the reason why we wanted to come have this discussion. And like we said, we know that God has such a blessing stored up for his kingdom in this season, but the key to obtaining it is obedience.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. So,
thank
see
you
you guys
for watching.
next video. Bye.